We will be. Okay, well, hello
Hi.
everybody and
Hi.
welcome. Welcome to another episode of Ask a STEM Sister with me, Ami Bakare, and our amazing guest, Esmer Harris.
Hello,
Um,
everyone.
Yay! This episode is coming to you guys on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all the fellow mothers out there. I hope you guys are enjoying your day and I hope that your families have spoiled you. This episode is super exciting for me just because anybody that knows me knows that I really love makeup. In fact, I do these sessions from my makeup room. So this is great. I can't wait to get into this conversation. So let's just dive right in. So you are a proud graduate of Middle Tennessee State University.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, how did you choose that as your undergraduate institution? And then your major as well, being forensic science. How did you choose those?
Well, to be quite honest, I was a 18-year-old, 17-year-old. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I asked my favorite teacher at the time, which was my science biology teacher, what should I do? So the first thing she asked me was, what are you interested? What do you do in your free time? What do you look at on TV? And at that time I was looking at CSI Miami, all those ID channels, ID series. And that was majority of what I was looking at, like Dexter and things like that at the time. I absolutely love Dexter. That's actually
Me too.
that's actually how I chose the degree in forensic science. And there were, I think, only three universities at the time that offered those. One being University of Knoxville. I tried to get in. I didn't succeed. So that was my first choice. My second choice was Middle Tennessee State University, where I did get in. Um, and I think the other choice was University of Chattanooga. And I just thought Middle Tennessee State was the easiest. It was the closest to home, which is Memphis, Tennessee. Um, and that is how I chose the degree in forensic science. It literally was a biology teacher asking me, "What do you do in your free time? What do you look at? What are your interests? What is the thing that you do that could be translated into a degree, but you do it for a passion and for fun?" So at that time, it was looking at CSI and trying to figure out mysteries and things like that. So that's how I chose the degree, and that's how I chose MTSU.
Wow. I think something that we always highlight or something that's very common with all the people that we interview is having somebody in their corner that gives them great advice, a mentor or somebody that can assist you with some of those major life decisions. So that's really awesome that you had somebody to do that for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Miss Hope Gray.
Aw. That's so cute. So I don't know much about forensic science, but it sounds like it could be a little bit difficult. So I want to know what was college like for you as a forensic science major?
Well, Middle Tennessee State University, they structure all of their science classes to be somewhat like a medical school curriculum. So I would definitely say it was very difficult. Number one, because I didn't feel like I had the adequate scientific knowledge, so to speak, in the chemistry realm. Now, I knew biology, but the chemistry realm wasn't really taught thorough in my high school. So when I went to college, I was kind of a behind. So that I would honestly say is what kind of hindered me sometimes when it came to classes. It was like I was trying to struggle to catch up a lot. coming from a rural area in Memphis, Tennessee, some of the schools, they focus on just teaching you how to get into college, how to write an essay and things like that. They weren't really focused on science per se, or math really. It was all about writing, and I guess that is what kind of slowed me down in the long run when getting to college. So basically, what I looked like in college was like this. I'm in the library, and you can ask anybody who knew me. I'm in the library all the time. I'm in my room studying. I'm with a study group, writing on boards in the library. I was always in a book. I was always trying to learn and catch up with the things that I felt like I needed. And I'm a perfectionist, so that was a lot of reason why I was always in a book. Always studying for a test. I would probably start studying for a test maybe a month ahead of time. Um,
That's a good skill.
yeah. And really how I learned in school was not by going to lecture. I'm not an auditory learner, and I think that's the biggest thing that you have to learn when you're going to school, is that um I'm sorry. When you're going to school, you have to learn how to study. You have to learn how you learn. And that was one of the biggest things that it took so long to learn, that I finally got it together around my senior year, junior year. But I was more of one of those people where I had to do it, and I had to read and write it down. Basically, I have somewhat of a photogenic memory, so just learning how to study, I think that helped me catch up in the long run. Learning how I learned helped me catch up in the long run. But that was what my life was like in college. It was, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little miserable, but in the long run, it worked out. Because I knew that's something that I wanted to do, and just I love a challenge. So just being one of the women, I kind of came in with two other friends in forensic science. We met at the freshman orientation. I was the only one left in forensic science at the end of it. So that would tell you how difficult forensic science was. But forensic science, basically, it was trying to cram every scientific fact or I guess law or theory into your brain. It was literally trying to take biology, chemistry, even actual crime scene investigation, actual instrumentation. Had to learn how to use the GC, or gas chromatography. Mass spectrometer, and a lot of instrumental equipment. That was mainly what I did when I was in school. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I would do it all over again. It definitely was a challenge, and I knew that if I can get through that, I could get through anything. At the time, I wanted to go into forensic pathology, but after being in school for 4+ years, I was like, do I really want to go back and do this like all over? And I said, you know what? I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna let the ball roll for a couple years, and then decide what I wanted to do. So that would probably be the answer of how my life was in college. I was always in a book, always studying, always trying to figure out different ways to study. And the best way was studying in a group, teaching somebody else. That's what I learned for myself. The first thing that I wanted to do while in school was learn how to study, how to actually
Yeah,
prepare for tests and
that's
things like that.
important. Yeah, I find that, when you're coming from high school, making that transition, that can be a little bit difficult for some folks because maybe when you were in high school, it was like school's really easy for you. Like maybe
Yes.
really easy, like you didn't really actually have a study schedule, you didn't really have to study and you could somehow, still do decent on tests. But yeah, college is much different where if you don't have that discipline to, come up with your study plan and that kind of thing, like it'll be real rough for you.
Yeah, and that's what it was for the first 2 years, 2.5 years. It was it was very rough. I see my way through. I seen my way through. I'm not gonna lie, and a lot of professors actually said that's what they did. So it gave me a lot of encouragement to know that where I was no different than where they were at the time. So definitely just, really at the end of the day, I guess I started to realize that what you learn does not adequately come through on a GPA, my GPA may be 2.7 or a C average or 2.9, but that does not mean that's my intellectual level. And that was one thing that I kind of learned, because I stressed myself out for a long time to get to this. I was like right there at a 3 point. I was always at 2.9, or I would have a semester GPA of 3.2 or something like that. But because I started off in a bad position, which I love to tell young people going into college, take your easy classes first. I didn't have anybody to tell me that, but always take your easy classes in the first 2 years. Because you want to create a structure where your GPA starts up here. So where like if you lack some of those semesters or some of those years, that you're starting from a good point, so you can only come down by a little bit. But if you start from a low point, it's hard to get up there. And that's one of the things that hindered me. I would have a 3.2 GPA for the semester, but because my freshman year and my sophomore year were me struggling, trying to figure out how to study, how to do this. A lot of things that I should have probably learned in high school. That is, that's what hindered me, just not knowing what I should have and trying to play catch up at that time. So that's why I would always recommend to start with the easiest classes first, like speech, communication, all the things that you probably took in high school. Take those first. Take art, all those things first. Build that GPA up so that if it falls, if you're in the science industry, that it'll fall at a good level instead of starting low and trying to like struggle your way up. It's almost impossible. So that's definitely a tip I would give anybody going into forensic science or going into science or chemistry, period.
That's amazing advice, and I honestly think that advice can apply to most majors, but probably more specifically, like you said, sciences. And so I want to go back a little bit because I know in our pre-conversation, you were kind of explaining to me how forensic science is a mix, and you also mentioned it here as well, of chemistry. And so chemistry, forensic science, and all these different sciences. And so I'm curious, what is the difference for those of us that don't know? What is the difference between traditional chemistry and like forensic science?
Well, traditional chemistry is literally you're taking organic chemistry, you're taking your basic chemistries. You may take P-Chem. Most likely chemistry majors take P-Chem, which is physical chemistry. And just
thank you.
Really, really kind of developing a structure for that chemistry. That's what I would say a chemistry degree is. You're taking every chemistry based class there is. Now, forensic science, that is an interdisciplinary degree where you're taking chemistry, you're taking biology, you're taking instrumental analysis. Some chemistry majors don't have to take that, where you're learning how to use the instruments such as the gas chromatography, mass spec, spectrophotometer. You're looking to learn how to do almost everything when it comes to forensic science. I also took criminal justice classes to learn what a criminal could get away with, what they couldn't. That's what I used to call him Santa Claus, my professor. It was judicial process, I believe is the name of the class. Or no, it wasn't. It was criminal investigation, where basically I learned the past laws or past cases for certain things. Like I learned about the fruit of the poisonous tree, where an officer, if they walk into your house and they came with a warrant that specifically said this is what they were looking for. If they found something else not in that warrant, it was then the fruit of a poisonous tree. And it was inadmissible in court. So basically that's what I learned. I kind of took all the sciences together, like literally everything you can think of. I took organic chemistry, I took regular chemistry, I took calculus. The only thing different from a chemistry major that I did not take would be physical chemistry. That's just something that I guess really wasn't a necessity for forensic science. But typically, me and my chemistry friends were in classes together. Like in every class, we were in it together. So that's how similar they can be. But however, they were very different. Mainly because I kind of had to take chemistry and biology and mix them together in order to kind of explain certain things that would happen on a crime scene, or how to figure out something. So back to what forensic science is. The actual definition for forensic science, or I'm paraphrasing or summarizing here, is the use of science to answer a lawful question. So basically researching and analyzing the evidence to present proof to a jury or to the judge, that this is what happened and this is how this crime was committed, or so on and so forth. And that's definitely different from chemistry, because of the criminal justice aspect. Most definitely, they didn't have to learn any of those things. They weren't in the criminal justice judicial processing. So I kind of took law degree, biology, and chemistry and meshed them all up into one degree. And that's why it was considered interdisciplinary degree, because literally I can work in almost every field that I wanted to. And that is actually another reason why I chose forensic science. I could work in criminal justice, any type of setting. I can even go to law school. It definitely prepared me for law school. I was very indecisive coming into college, so that was a big deal, like to where I could take a degree and disperse it out in order to find a career, because I had heard how hard it was to get out of school and find a career as a new graduate. So I wanted to open up the plate, and make it more accessible to get a job out of college. So that's another reason why I chose to get that degree, because I could get anything in biology as a lab tech. I could be a chemist. I could be a law enforcement. I could actually be in a crime scene lab. I could actually be a lawyer. There were so many things that I could do with it, which is why I chose that over chemistry. Just because I liked chemistry, but I only really understood it when I could apply it to something, just like physics. Physics is more of like you have to see it and know it type of thing, and that's why it's probably my favorite course. But you actually got to see, at this rate, you drop a ball, this is what happens to it at this speed, because gravitational pull. So really just the differences was that everything was meshed up into one degree. Literally anything you can think of was just combined into one degree, which is what made it 10 times harder, because you weren't just, it wasn't like you were going from one chemistry class to organic chemistry. It wasn't like you were moving into I guess a path. You were kind of just everywhere. So one year I would be in organic chemistry, and the next year I'll be in law classes. So what I learned was that I was losing the information that I needed for the science, because I was now trying to cram all this law information into my head. So that's what made it really difficult, because by the time I got out of that class, I was in another science class, and I would have to kind of refresh and renew my mind in the science field.
Wow.
So that's what I would say is the difference. It's kind of just a mesh of everything. Just like, when you're going to a crime scene, you kind of have to be thinking about everything, analyzing everything that you see to kind of recreate what happened in that scenario. So that's why they mesh everything together. So that if you see that there's a spot on a wall, that looks weird, maybe somebody tried to clean that, you know, and then you go, you scrape, you know, whatever paint or anything that you need, you take that into the lab and you put it into a machine. They'll tell you what it is. You have to then take your analytical skills to figure out what that compound is and how it even got there. And sometimes that can be the key to solving a, you know, solving a crime. Finding out where they bought that chemical, so that you can look at the tape. So everything leads back. So that's why you kind of had to know everything.
Well, hello and welcome. Oh, is that an echo?
Yeah,
A little bit,
it's a little bit. It's fine though.
but it's cool.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Same.
Oh well.
I mean,
Well, welcome. I know we are starting.
it's not a big deal. The echo.
Yeah,
You're on mute.
but now you're on mute. There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of a gist of chemistry and the differences in forensic science.
Well, I just had a quick question. I've been listening backstage because technical
Yeah.
difficulty. And you know, all of this talk is chemistry is triggering. I was a biology person, couldn't really stick with the chemistry, but I wanted to ask about the entrepreneurship aspect of things. You know, seeing that you were able to find your interests and really lock in, but then took on a founding role in a company. So I would like to hear a little bit about what triggered you to found a company and kind of go the startup route and how that's been working out for you.
I was definitely triggered into this. What started me on this journey was that I found myself in these temporary or consulting to get where I wanted to be, right? And as a Black woman, I was in a white male dominated field. And if you know anything about being a Black woman in a room full of white men who've never probably even been that close to a Black woman, it was a struggle to prove that I was worthy of being there. It was a struggle to get my ideas across. It was just a struggle to do everything. So a little story about how I actually started the lab was I was working as a R&D chemist at a soap company here in Memphis, Tennessee. I was working as a consultant. I had started out, it was only supposed to be a 1-month position. And going back, this is the reason why I was doing consultant positions, is because I was trying to build my resume. I was trying to gain experiences in any industry that I needed. I was strategically taking small jobs to kind of put them all together to show another position that, hey, look, I have all this experience in these different sectors. I'm very useful. I'm very knowledgeable about the manufacturing industry, which is very prevalent here in Memphis, Tennessee. You'll find any manufacturing setting that you can think of other than cosmetic science. There's a limited few cosmetic companies here in Memphis, Tennessee. Most of them are in New Jersey or California, or in Florida. So that is where I came in a crossroad. At that position where I was working as an R&D chemist, one day, I had been working there for 6 months. So it was only supposed to be a 1-month position, consultant position or a temporary position. And they saw how I came in the first 2 weeks and conquered, that Black woman. Look at me, I can do it. I came in and finished 27 projects within my first week.
Nice.
27 projects. And when I mean 27 projects, that was 27 different clients, producing their soap or personal care product, and getting it out the door. That's what they needed me to catch up on their work. They were hundreds and hundreds of clients behind, and they needed someone to help come in and catch up, which I definitely did that. And I wish I would have slowed down a little bit, because what I found is that once I helped them, they no longer needed me. So what happened was I was supposed to be there for a month. I came in and showed my tail, and they were like, you know what? We need you. We want to keep you and bring you in full time. But here's the but. We need you to work 6 more months so that we can get you out the contract with your consultant firm, right? So I was with Aerotech. Aerotech is one of the biggest consultant or temporary firms here, and that's what I did to get me where I am now. I did a lot of consultant work with Kelly Services, Apex Life Sciences, Aerotech. There's probably a million more temporary agencies. Randstad is one of them too. So that was the gig. If you stay with us for another 6 months, which it was then 7 months down the line, we'll bring you on full time as a chemist, a full-time chemist. So let me just tell you this. I got 2 weeks outside of me almost getting that full-time position, and they laid me off. There probably were a lot of reasons that they laid me off. One thing, I think the company was struggling big time with, just business wise. I think they were struggling. And then second thing was, after those 7 months, I started to look and say, well, what have I learned? What have I actually been trained other than to look at a formula and tweak it to match the client's desires? Mainly somebody in sales would just pull a old formula up. They would have a set of extracts or oils or fragrances that they can add.
And were you able to use your creative side?
Yeah.
Were you able to? Okay.
Yeah. When it came to coloring and scent, that's where I got to use my own I guess creativeness. Sometimes the client would say, well, you just want something floral. So I would go in the cabinets and figure out, what is my favorite floral scent? Oh, let me go find it. So that's where I got to be creative. And down the line, that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to learn what I was actually doing, why surfactants were a big thing. What was each ingredient? What was it doing? What's its function? So I found myself saying, you know what? What have I learned after 7 months of working here? It's almost been a year. And what have I learned? And I really didn't feel like I had learned what I needed. I learned process and techniques, but that's because I taught myself that. So I found myself going to my supervisor and saying, hey, I've been here 7 months. In a couple weeks, you guys will probably be bringing me on full time. Is there a way or a list of things that you can write down for me to go home and study, or for you guys to train me in? And that didn't go over smoothly with him. I literally went to him that exact way, and I was like, hey, I'm not being taught, you're telling, the person that's over me to teach me this, and they're not teaching me it. I really was coming to him and saying, hey, I'm really just being labored, and I'm being used. I want to be fed into, I want to learn, I want to grow so that I can help the company. I can learn how to do certain things to help the company. And
did you feel that there was a lack of mentorship there, like a lack of career direction and professional development?
There was a big lack. And my counterpart, she was also an African American woman. She told me that it was probably because I was a temporary and they didn't know whether they were going to keep me or not, So when I did go to him and I talked to him about it, this is exactly what he said to me, you guys. I'm not over exaggerating. He said, just like in college, no one had to push you to learn anything. you went and learned it. You went and showed initiative to learn it by going off and going to class and studying and things like that. I'm not going to pat you on your butt for you to learn anything. That's exactly what he said to me, guys. He literally, he said, in order to, and then he also went ahead and said, in order to learn something, you have to show that you want to learn something. And I thought that's exactly what I was doing, was going to him and saying, hey, I want to learn more, teach me more. I can be an asset to this company. And once he said that, I kind of I shut down. I'm not even gonna lie, I shut down. And I was kind of like, yep, this position isn't gonna take me anywhere. He's basically telling me I need to teach myself.
Well, I think that speaks to, and that's something that we've talked about in other episodes, how we are mentored and what ways are more effective in STEM, especially early career versus later, how we want to be taught and how we want to, how we want someone to show us the ropes and make things a comfortable space. And we are there to grow, but it's the communication that can break down. And now the person who maybe you were very excited that you hoped was going to teach you all these things and open up their network to you, is saying, just go out there and do it yourself. So I think it just really does speak to our differences in how we need to be spoken to, how we are encouraged to stay in our field, and honestly, the types of things that can be said to young STEM professionals that make them leave STEM altogether, because that's not how they communicate. So yeah.
So when I learned that, I basically would have to teach myself everything in this position because of the lack of motivation to do it, the lack of wanting to train me to do it. I'm a rebellious soul. So you know what I did? I said, if I'm going to teach myself what I'm doing, how to make new formulations, the different techniques, I can do that on my own. And I literally booked a vacation. Before this happened, I had just went to the Boss Conference with the Main Choice hair care line. It's a conference for beauty entrepreneurs. And I was going because I had decided, okay, well, I'm going to make my own hair care line. And when I went, I met other women who wanted to create their own hair care lines or beauty lines or skincare lines. And I stood up in front of the real BB Judy. I don't know if you guys know, with the kaleidoscope drops. It was her forum. I stood up and asked a question about I think the question was, how do you go about getting your product into stores? I think that was the question that I asked. And I introduced myself and what I did for my career. And I think all that anybody heard in the audience was, oh, she works in R&D. She makes products. Let me ask her if she can make a product for me. So literally, after that forum, I was swarmed by ladies saying, hey, do you formulate? What do you do? Could you do that for me? And at the time, I wasn't doing it. And I was like, you know what? I mean, I could. Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I do it at work, so why not? So that's literally how I started. I had no plans to start this. I actually wanted to start my own hair care line, but I saw that there was a need, there was a demand for what knowledge I had, so I put that to use. And that's how the Chemically Divine Lab started. I started formulating just to help women out. In their, to get into their industries, to break through and start up that company. So I literally started by making a detangler. That was the first thing I made, a detangler for a woman. And it came out perfect, if you ask me, for me to be doing this and to have just told them, you're not teaching me. I went and got in those books like I did in college, and I started highlighting and writing things and figuring out things and techniques on my own. And I was like, I'm learning more than I ever learned in an actual, job. Like, I'm training myself at this moment to do what I'm already doing, just more in depth. So once I did that, I was like, you know what? That wasn't so bad. I helped somebody out. It was really fulfilling. I was like, oh my God. And then I started getting other women to ask me to do it. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it full out. I've never have done anything. So what I did was, I had been laid off from that position. Literally like 4 days after talking to him about basically feeding back into me and training me. I had been laid off. They literally called me Friday, literally after I had gotten off work from the place, and said, hey, we're no longer going to need you. And that's all it was. There was no explanation. I even asked, well, why? Why? There's no explanation. You step on one too many toes, or you intimidate somebody, you're out. And that's kind of what being a consultant, and what I learned as a consultant, you can literally, they can call you right after work. Literally they'll wait till you get from work. You've done a full day of work. You put your back into it. They'll call you maybe 5 minutes after leaving and say, hey, yeah, we're not going to need you anymore.
Well, we have learned so much about your journey toward becoming a STEM entrepreneur and CEO of your own company. Before we wrap up, I just want you to share with everyone where they can follow you, where they can keep up with you online. Do you have a website? Just kind of let our viewers know how they can keep up with you.
You can contact me from my or follow me on Instagram at the Chemically Divine Lab. That's the whole thing, no spaces. That I think is also my Facebook profile as well, the Chemically Divine Lab or Laboratory. It might be, I think actually for Facebook, it's the Chemically Divine Laboratory. And then I have a website called it's www.thechemicallylab.com. And those are the ways that you can follow me and see what I'm doing. I'm very active on Instagram. That's mainly where I'm active. So definitely.
Looks like you had a question that came in here at the end. Would you partner with other Black-owned R&D companies?
I definitely would. I've learned while doing it by yourself, things move slowly. They move 10 times slower because you're trying to juggle so many things at once. So I've definitely looked into bringing on a partner that can help in the business aspect and not just stay in the lab, So I've definitely thought about that. I'm definitely interested in that down the road to help me grow in my business.
Well, awesome. I apologize for the slight technical difficulties we had, but it was a joy being able to hear about your story and your experiences. And I can tell, you're going to be a huge success. I want everyone to take the time to go and follow the Chemically Divine Lab on Instagram and take a look at our webpage as well. Also, if you've made it this far into the video, go ahead and hit like and go ahead and hit subscribe so that you will keep up with our future videos. And as always, thank you for watching our videos and tune in next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.